Welcome back to EconoChat Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman, hosted by myself, Elsa Bitimnyani, and we are talking budget.
Deficit.
And also deficit, but also the link between the two. And the question we had before we went on a break is, where do we get the money to finance the deficit?
Okay, that is a good question because it's a shortfall. It's obvious that you have to find the money somewhere. Otherwise, it'll remain a deficit, and if it means that the government will not be able to execute a part of the functions that it has to execute. And another aspect that's very important, and I think I've mentioned this before, Elsby, you can help me refresh my memory here. The government is a running machine. You can't stop managing the country on the 30th of or the 31st of March and then continue or restart on the 1st of April. We break it into fiscal years for the sake of measurement and for the sake of planning and for the sake of allocation. But the government never stops. Governing Namibia is a continuous exercise. And this is a key component of the whole planning process to finalize the budget. In the sense that you can't stop at some point and then when it's convenient carry on. The government has to do what it has to do every single day of our lives. That includes Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah. So now you're asking me, where do we find the money to finance the deficit? For the last how many years? 14 years since, or 13 years since 2010, we have run up a sizable budget deficit every year, meaning that the shortfall was always in the region of about 4 to 6% of total expenditure. But, and this is academic, it's not really important, is it? 6%, is it? In 2020 it was 8%. Is it 4%, is it 8%? What is important is that you have to be able to finance it. You have to have access to some sort of credit that you can go and borrow to continue operating as a government. And this is now, you heard that word borrow. So it means loan. So it means debt. So these are all dirty words that come into the play when you start talking about deficit. But like everything in economics, you have to view it in context. Now remember, every time that we talk about budget and deficit and debt, I say, don't get excited. Don't go up in arms. Don't start striking. Don't do anything simple. We are very far away from any serious problems, and we are aware of it. Remember, I spoke 2 weeks ago about debt management. Yes. Key important. So where do we go? We go to the capital market. What is the capital market? The capital market is I don't want to call it a division. Let's call it a platform or a facility that is listed by the Namibia Stock Exchange. It's called the bond market, and this is where the Bank of Namibia, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, regularly, and by regularly I'm talking about weekly, hold auctions where they sell government debt of specific bonds for specific amounts for specific durations. Now, you may say, specific, what not, huh? It's very, very important, the transparency of a bond auction. That the people, remember, the people who buy the government bond, the people who give the money to finance the deficit are mostly institutional investors. A small part is private investors also. But I mean, how many people do you know that can buy bonds in multiples of $10,000? Very few. very few.
Yeah.
And those few people who can afford that, they usually have their financial advisors. And they're not going to send you with a little note to the Bank of Namibia and say, hey, please buy me $20,000 worth of this bond. You know? So there are platforms, there are mechanisms where these transactions are effected.
Okay.
So now we get to the point where there is an auction, and it is for, let's say, GC45, meaning it is a bond that is only due in 2045. It's 31 years from now. So there are short-term instruments as well where you can buy government debt. We call them treasury bills. And then there are longer instruments, IRS, internal registered stock, but a generic term for the whole thing is the government bond market.
Okay.
So it's various, we call them instruments. In other words, various designations of maturity, of size, of everything. And these are all sold in weekly auctions, whether it's so-called money market, short-term, or capital market, longer-term. The whole thing is transparent. And it's very important because this is what lacked in Zimbabwe in 2001, 2002, 2003, until it got so discretionary is the word I want to use, although that's maybe a bit of a too big word. The bond market in Zimbabwe deteriorated into a situation where it was determined by who you know and whose money you can organize for the government, which is not the case in Namibia. So financing the deficit is very, very possible, very easy, as long as you play the rules of the game, and the game is called the capital market.
Okay. Capital market it is. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we continue with some more interesting terminologies that Mr. Daniel Steinman will, of course, also explain and elaborate on. But let's go for a short break.